Hello explorers and archaeologists alike, and welcome back to Bumblebee, where today I'm dishing out the top 10 recent mummy discoveries that will blow your mind. Let's start with how everything we knew is now wrong. The oldest known practice changed, because archaeologists may have uncovered evidence for the oldest known practice of mummification. Human remains interred 8,000 years ago in the Sado Valley of Portugal appear to have been deliberately treated for mummification prior to burial, making them the first evidence of Mesolithic mummification in Europe. The Sado Valley remains, uncovered in the early 1960s, have very little soft tissue at all, making visible identifiers of mummification not so apparent. Although obviously deliberately placed, the burials had been considered pretty straightforward. The remains were brought to the National Museum of Archaeology in Portugal, along with the sketches and some rather poor quality photographs of the site, which limited the follow-up study all those years later. Recently, however, following the death of archaeologist Manuel Farina dos Santos, 3 rolls of films were recovered from his personal effects. The images captured therein were of exceptional quality and allowed the 2022 research team to conduct a more in-depth analysis that had not been possible previously. The results of these experiments could then be compared to the Sado Valley remains, and even without soft tissue, the remains of one individual showed definitive signs of mummification. These included hyperflexed limbs, an absence of disarticulation, and rapid sediment infill around bones. In January of 2022, it was announced a big ol' mummy family had been found. Hidden in a fire-scorched structure off of the Nile is a 2,000-year-old family tomb, and inside, 30 mummies of various ages. Though the archaeologists have yet to date the tomb, they suspect a single family buried their dead in it over generations spanning from the Ptolemaic and Roman periods. That's 1st century BC to the 2nd or 3rd century AD. Some of the mummies were very well preserved, while others had their bandages and cartonnage cut by ancient robbers. This new tomb, which was made up of 4 deeply excavated chambers, is one of more than 300 recently discovered surrounding the mausoleum of Aga Khan. And while most of the other tombs were found underground or dug into rocky hills, this particular tomb was an above-ground structure, which the researchers think likely was used as a place of sacrifice, thus the flame-burned walls, animal bones, plant remains, and offering tables. Archaeologists and researchers alike insist this is merely only the beginning of their discoveries. Guess what, y'all? New Saqqara tomb dropped! Saqqara, for those who don't know, was an active burial ground for more than 3,000 years and is a designated UNESCO heritage site. It sits at what was once the ancient Egyptian capital of Memphis and is home to more than a dozen pyramids, including the Step Pyramid, near where the shaft containing the newest discovered mummy was found. Archaeologists say they have found a gold leaf covered mummy sealed inside a sarcophagus that has not yet been opened for 4,300 years. The mummy, the remains of a man named Hekafshephes, is thought to be one of the oldest and most complete non-royal corpses ever found in Egypt. It was discovered down a 50-foot shaft at Saqqara, where 3 other tombs also were. The largest of the mummies is Kanamgadajif, a priest, inspector, and supervisor of nobles. Next was Mary, who was a senior palace official given the title of secret keeper, and the last was a judge and writer named Fatek. Several other items, including pottery, have also been found among the tombs. All of the finds date to the 5th and 6th dynasties of the Old Kingdom, approximately 25 to 2100 BCE. In addition to the mummies, the excavation revealed statues, wall paintings, amulets, tools, and potteries. Hawass is especially interested in a variety of statues uncovered during the dig, as they offer insight into the art of the Old Kingdom. Speaking of Saqqara, everyone wanted to sit at Teti's table. A century after the discovery of King Tut's tomb made headlines around the world, in the sweltering desert heat outside of Cairo, archaeologists have found a giant trove of ancient coffins and mummies, along with the ceramic amulets believed to have been used in burial rituals and thick papyrus documents so big that they're full of secrets. Egyptologist Zahi Hawass told NBC News on November 2nd of 2022 that the site contained countless artifacts related to the pharaoh King Teti and his followers, who worshipped him as a god for over 1,000 years after his death. Obviously, being worshipped as a god, this is the guy you want to be buried next to, right? Even the remains of King Tut's closest generals and advisors were at the site, which sits about 20 miles south of the North African national's capital. I really believe that this year and next year, this site is going to be the most important site in Egypt, said Hawass, obviously referring to the network of underground rooms hidden 65 25 feet beneath the oldest pyramids in Egypt. I always say that we found until only now 30% of our monuments are still there. 70% are buried underneath the ground. Adding in that his team had also found close to 300 coffins in the vicinity of the pyramid this year alone. Next is the most bizarre story yet. It's out to lunch. First reported on February 25th of 2023. This headline definitely turned some heads, including mine. A man stopped for drinking publicly in a park in Peru was also found to be in possession of more than just a container of beer. Juan Cesar Bajero, 26, had a 600 to 800-year-old mummy in a cooler bag style backpack. Makes sense to have since he's a food delivery person, but what doesn't make sense is cramming a mummy into it and showing it off to two of your friends while in the park on a casual Saturday. When asked by police to justify the presence of the mummified corpse in his bag, Juan's response was, "I take care of her, and she takes care of me." Apparently, he's also named her Juanita and started calling her his spiritual friend. It's unclear how the man came to be in possession of the mummy. Mummification was a common practice among several cultures in Peru before the arrival of Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century. In November of 2021, archaeologists in Peru had discovered a mummy believed to be up to 1,200 years old in an underground tomb, so really any earthquake, landslide, or curious cave explorer could just stumble across a mummy there. Joke's on Juan, however, authorities say the mummy is believed to be a male. Unless that doesn't bother him. Anyways, it's now in possession of Peru's Ministry of Culture, and Juan has been charged with illegal possession of historical patrimony and could face 5 years in jail. Next up is a timestamp error. Oops! Made a carbon dating error. Now we have to rewrite all of mummy history. Just a regular Tuesday. Kind of the case with the mummy Queenie, a high-ranking aristocrat that was discovered in 2019 and assumed to be only a few thousand years old at first, but howdy doody, in 2022, it's proven to be far older than previously thought, and we are talking one of the oldest Egyptian mummies ever unearthed. It dates to the Old Kingdom, demonstrating that mummification processes were highly advanced 4,000 years ago, which is 1,000 years earlier than previously thought. This tomb now suggests that ancient Egyptians living during the time of the Old Kingdom between 2700 BC and 2200 BC were already carrying out sophisticated burials. The intricacy of the body's mummification method and materials, particularly its very fine linen dressing and high-quality resin, was supposed to have taken 1,000 years for them to be able to produce. Professor Salima Ikram, who's head of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo, told The Observer magazine this would completely turn over our understanding of the evolution of mummification on its head. The materials used, their origins, and trade routes associated with them dramatically impact our understanding of the Old Kingdom Egypt. If this is indeed an Old Kingdom mummy, all books about mummification and the history of the Old Kingdom would need to be revised. Meet the Peruvian pre-Inca mummy, more than 1,000 years old and found on the outskirts of the modern capital. November of 2021. The mummy was probably a youngerish person from what they've gathered, and found in an underground tomb wrapped in a funerary bundle along with ceramics and rope, naturally including little bits of skin and hair around, While best known for the mountaintop of Machu Picchu, Peru was home to various pre-Hispanic cultures that thrived in the centuries before the Incan Empire rose to power. The mummy was discovered about 200 meters from where the first mummy of Cajamarquilla was found, explained the archaeologist Yomira Huaman. This particular archaeological site is where the remains of 20 people who were apparently sacrificed about 800 to 1200 years ago were found. This recent discovered mummy in particular lived between 1100 and 1200 years ago and might have belonged to the Lima or Ichima culture. Cajamarquilla complex features the ruins of 4 pyramids and other constructions such as walls laid out like mazes, apartment buildings. The complex is the second largest mud brick city in Peru and was possibly occupied by people from the coast and the Andean highlands. Never thought I'd see the day. It's the Van Gogh mummy? Emphasize on that question mark because that's just straight weird, but he does, in some people's opinion, bear resemblance to one of the unnamed 35 mummified bodies that were found during the restorative work on the Church of the Assumption of Our Lady in Quinto Village. The burials were unearthed in 2011 when part of the floor of the church was removed to install a heating system. Imagine being one of the workers finding that while tearing up floorboards. All mummified bodies were then stored in the chapel of the church until a 2014 project was finally launched to study and restore the collection, and a lab was created on site. Mummified naturally thanks to the very dry soil, the bodies date from 18th until mid-19th century based on the clothing of the mummies. In the region of Aragon, which Quinto belongs to, there were several epidemics. In the 18th century, smallpox and yellow fever ravaged the region. In the 19th century, it was cholera that claimed lives, so it's likely disease was the primary cause of these people's demise. According to Raffaella Bicacciui, bioanthropologist in the legal medicine section of the University of Turin, the mummy's excellent state of preservation allows for a minimally invasive, in-depth study of skeletal and soft tissue pathologies. They plan to share their findings at the World Congress on Mummy Studies. By that time, we hope we can give a name to the Van Gogh mummy and more about his life. Look out, James Bond, here comes Gold Tongue. So, it was December of 2021 when archaeologists unearthed 2 tombs, one of which had never been opened, a huge rarity in ancient Egyptian standards, and they contained the mummified remains of a man and woman who died about 2,500 years ago. The sealed tomb held the mummified remains of the man and included items such as a scarab amulet, 4 canopic jars, and more than 400 pieces of funerary figures. The mummy's face was also well preserved, with a golden leaf tongue inside its mouth. In ancient Egypt, embalmers sometimes crafted tongues from gold foil and placed them inside the mouths of the dead to enable them to speak with the god Osiris. But these have only been found in archaeological sites in Alexandria and El Balnasa. The other tomb, which had already been raided by grave robbers around the time of its actual burial, held a sarcophagus in the shape of a woman, and the mummified remains were just trashed. 2 more gold tongues were found though, one inside the woman's mouth. The 3 gold tongues found in the tomb date to the Roman period that began in 30 BCE, and scientists hope these new discoveries will allow them to better understand the funerary rites observed during this time period. And now for what I feel may be the most exciting on the list, the Ming Mummy. Chinese road workers stumbled upon an astonishing find in 2011. While digging several feet into the ground during an excavation of a road, they unexpectedly hit a large, solid object about 6 feet below the surface. Uncovering it further, they got that oh crap realization and called in the big dogs. Subsequent investigations revealed that the object was found in Taizhou was in fact a Chinese tomb, containing a 3-layered coffin within its walls and a remarkably intact remains of a woman from the Ming Dynasty dating back 700 years. As the archaeologists opened the main coffin, they were greeted by layers of silk and linen, smells of oil and perfume, and a brown clear liquid that I'm sure the Victorians would have probably slurped up with a crazy straw during their Egyptomania phase. The archaeologists who excavated the coffin, however, were unable to determine whether the mysterious brown liquid was used intentionally to preserve the body, or if it was somehow groundwater that seeped in over time and mixed with stuff. Either way, these are some astonishingly well-preserved remains of a woman, complete with her body, hair, skin, clothes, and jewelry. Even her eyebrows and eyelashes are impeccably preserved, revealing remarkable details about her appearance from centuries ago. Since the discovery, she has come to be known as the Taizhou Mummy, aka the accidental mummy. The best part, this woman was not meant to be a mummy. While most mummies discovered today are products of complex process, natural mummification has occurred in rare instances. The Taizhou Mummy is an extraordinary example of this, distinguished by its exceptional state of preservation and enigmatic background. Alright, thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more from us, and until next time, where's your mummy?